Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Tech with Alex Baja. In this video, I'll walk you through how to set up authentication system in a Laravel 11 application that has login, register, forget password, 2FA using Laravel Fortify. Let's get started. Yeah, actually, so this is not the first time I'm actually using Laravel Fortify to set up authentication system in Laravel. So if you are using Laravel 8, I'll leave the link in the description to my article where I publish how to set up an authentication system in a Laravel 8 application using Laravel Fortify. And now for this tutorial, I'll be using Bootstrap 5. So I'll walk you through how to use it to set up Bootstrap 5 for the front end of your Laravel 11 application. Laravel provides Laravel Breeze, Laravel Fortify, Laravel Jetstream for authentication system. When you choose Laravel Jetstream or Laravel Breeze as your starter kit for authentication system, it comes with Tailwind CSS, okay, as the default. And then for Jetstream, it will actually ask you to choose between Livewire or Inertia.js. Now, probably you are not familiar with Tailwind CSS, or that's not the requirement for your project, or probably you have an existing project that has a front end that was done in Bootstrap. So you want to be able to get things sorted. You can actually also change that Tailwind CSS to Bootstrap in Laravel Breeze anyway, but then you want to have a full control of what happened behind the scenes, so you can actually use Laravel Fortify. So Laravel Jetstream uses Laravel Fortify behind the scene. So the difference between Laravel Fortify and Laravel Breeze is that Laravel Breeze comes with an interface, while Laravel Fortify just gives you the routes and the controllers for you to work with, so you can actually decide how the view looks like by yourself. So that's what I'm going to show you in this tutorial, so that you can actually use Bootstrap 5 to build all of those interfaces for your application. If you are creating a Laravel application from the Windows machine, which I'm using, there is an option where it will ask you what starter kit you want to use. But if you don't see that, you can actually skip that. But in case it asks you what starter kit you want to use, you could choose no, because you don't have to install Laravel Jetstream or Laravel Breeze for your application to work. So I will go ahead to use Laravel New. If I use Laravel New, create the name of you can use any name for your app, and then this is VS Code. This could be any editor of your choice. It could be Sublime or PHP Storm. So I'll go ahead and press enter, and then so it will ask, would you like to install a starter kit? I would say none, and then I'll press enter. And then which testing framework do you prefer, PHP Unit or Pest? So I will just say let me just go with Pest, and then press enter. I say, would you like to initialize the Git repository? I can say yes, and then it goes ahead to begin to create the project. So if you don't see all of that on your code editor, you can actually skip and then just go ahead. That means it has actually created a project for you without any of those starter kits. But in case you see these options, please ensure that in case you see this option, just ensure to choose the none, and then because you are not using Breeze or Jetstream, we want to use Laravel Fortify. So ensure you choose those options. So we just go ahead to get installed. So you could see when it is done creating it, it will ask. Now ignore this error that says could not find driver. Okay, so this is an issue because because in Laravel 11 it is using SQLite as default. We're going to change that. So I'm going to say MySQL. This is what I want to use for my database, and then I'll press enter. That. So now when it is done, so I'll just open the application in the code editor, and then we could continue from there. So when you open the application in any code editor of your choice, so for you to be able to add Laravel Fortify, you need to do composer require Laravel Fortify. So I'm just going to paste that here, and then it will go ahead to install it. So once it is done installing it, you could see it says using version 1.2 of Laravel Fortify. So the next, you have to publish the resources using the vendor publish command for Fortify service. So if you have not published it, so you could see here when I come to app, there is nothing, like the folders for Laravel Fortify has not been added. But once I publish them now, so once I do publish, so it will generate all of the files that are the folders and files that are needed. So when I come back here and open apps, you could see it has created create new user, password validation rules, and then it has added a file for migrations, that's for the 2FA, and then it has added the config file for fortify.php, and then there is a provider, the Fortify service provider has been added. So when you do the publish, after publishing the assets, the next is to register the Fortify service provider in the Laravel application. So previously it is usually done in the app.php under the config file, but in Laravel 11 it is now done under the providers. So I'll go to providers and then I'll just press enter and then register it here. So it can recognize Fortify service provider and then load all of the classes and whatever it is that is needed for Fortify to work for your Laravel application. So next is I will just close that and then go to env. So for the database setup, so from, like I mentioned while I was creating the project, the Laravel project, by default, the Laravel 11 comes with the default to SQLite for DB connection. So I'm going to change that to MySQL, and then I'm going to take this and then comment this out. So I'm using port 3307, and then I would go to the terminal and then I'll write PHP artist migrate. So it says the database does not exist. Would you like to create? I'll say yes. So it will go ahead to create the database. Now, ideally, if you are having, maybe your project has need for a couple of things that are not part of this default migration columns for users table, you can come here and add those extra columns. You say probably you need username, you need phone number, and all of those things as at the point where a user is trying to register in your application. So you can add it here, and then when you come to the service the actions, if you come to the app folder under actions Fortify, you could see create new user. So all those columns, extra column, you can add them here. Say you want to do phone number as part of the registration, so you can add them here, right? So that's just how it works. So for this tutorial, I'm just going to keep it simple. I will not be extending those features. So the next is to go over to Fortify here, and then you could see that so this is where I'll be putting up the functions that will be returning the views for Fortify. Then under this point here, so there are 6 features that come by default with Fortify. So there is registration, there's reset passwords, there's email verification, there's update profile information, there's update passwords, there's 2-factor authentication, and then so anyone you comment, it will be removed from the route. The route will not be available, but anyone that is uncommented, the route will be available. So let me show you. So for example, you see email verification is commented. So when I come to the terminal and I say PHP artisan route list, for example, so you could see now there is no mention of email verification and all of that here. So once I uncomment this, I save and I come back here, and so you could see it's showing 25 routes. So when I run PHP artisan route list again, you could see it is now showing 28. So there is now inclusion of, you could see here, email verification, email verify, and all of that. They've been added to the route list here because I have uncommented it. If I comment this one and try it again, you see that the update profile information will be ignored. So basically, whichever feature you are not needing for your authentication system of your Laravel application, you can actually skip that. So I'm going to walk you through all of these features one after the other. So I'll just comment this so that we don't have to come back to it. When I get to the section where I'll be explaining about 2-factor authentication, I'm going to talk about it in depth. So basically, before we continue to add the views that will return, because I said, like if you remember, I mentioned that when you install Fortify package, it does not have the front end, so you have to do that by yourself. And I'm going to be doing that using Bootstrap 5. So I will show you how to set up Bootstrap 5 in this application using Vite. To add Bootstrap, we're going to install Bootstrap using npm. So I'll say npm install Bootstrap. So using popper.js/core, and then we're using Sass. So popper.js is for the interactivity of the elements, something like pop-up dialog, reactivity of maybe you are clicking certain parts of that needs JavaScript, and then Sass is for compiling CSS to SCSS. So I'll just go ahead and then install that using npm. After installing Bootstrap, popper.js, and Sass using npm, you head over to Vite, and then you could see there is the input object here that says resources css app.css and then js app.js. I'm going to modify this to SCSS and then app.scss. Now, if you come to resources, you probably may not have that folder. So I'm going to create that folder, and then I'll just say new folder. say SAS, and then just create a new file in there and say app.scss, and then you create. So I can go ahead, I can delete this, folder. Don't need this folder. When you are done creating the app.scss file, if you don't have that in your application, then you could just paste this code and then you save. I could close that now. Go to app.js. This import.bootstrap here is for Axios, so I'm going to add import, and I'll say Bootstrap. So you can see that now. So it is different. This is different from this up one. So this is the Bootstrap that was added using npm, and then this is the Bootstrap for Axios. So I'm just going to save that and then close. Depending on the nature of your application, right? You probably have maybe master file, in the resources folder under the views. There is usually welcome and other views. So I'm going to add those views and then walk you through what it looks like when you want to add the compilation of the Bootstrap using the vit directory. The next thing that you need to figure out is to use the vit directory to add the app.scss and the app.js to your master file. In Laravel, we used to have a master file that contains the view for every other file. So like you could look at the screen now, this is layout and this is app.blade.php. So here you could see this is I've used the vit directive to add app.scss and app.js. So this will load, this would make it to recognize that every other thing I'm doing here is for Bootstrap 5, and then all of this code are Bootstrap 5 code that can actually work. So this is the this is the master file. So this could be any file in your application. So all you need to do is to just include the assets using the vit directive, and then it will be added. So I'm just going to proceed to, so I've added all of these views here because I don't have to code all this from scratch in this video. I'll leave the link to the repository on the description below, so that you can just check out those views. If you want to use them, you can actually start the repository. So I'm just going to say php artisan serve. So since we've added all of these, we've added all of these views that we need for the application, for the authentication pages, while I'm setting up the functions to display the views, I'm going to explain each of them to you. So I would go, so the application is now running on 1270, then I would go here and say npm run dev. So just so you see that it is set. So I'll walk through how to do this on the VS Code before I go to the browser to demo all of what we have implemented. The next is to head over to Fortify service provider. So I already have those code added here, so I'm going to walk you through each of them. So when it comes to login, there is a login view function that returns this auth.login view. Here you could see. So what happens is that when I did PHP artisan route lists, there were a couple of routes that were listed. So login is among them. So every time this form is submitted, what it does is that it actually happens. It takes the user to one of the functions here. So this is create user, this is reset user. So there is a route that is inbuilt in Fortify that handles this login. So when you submit a form, it actually deals with that. Now, for register view, if you want to register a user, this is the view that registers a user. So it has the email, the name, and then the password for the user to register. So every time you submit it, so these routes are already listed, they are inbuilt in Fortify. So once I say post action register, so once this user submits this form, Fortify knows that this is a register route that's going to be registering, that's going to be submitting his form to, and then it can handle that. In Laravel application, you want to have a default route, the default route that users are being redirected to when they are logged in or when they register. So we'll head over to the web.php here. So I already have this code written here. So we want the user to come to home whenever they are registered. So this is the home view that they are going to be redirected to once they are registered. So it's only for authenticated user. I'm going to explain these other links when we get there. So I just added the auth and then I group it here. So this is verified. I'm going to show you how this works in a moment. Now for emailing of links to users, so probably you want to verify a user. This middleware you are seeing here, you want users' email to be verified before you grant them access to certain part of your application. So these are middleware, and then you are saying that if this user has not verified their email, they cannot access any of this. So I'll go to user, and then I would say here I would just say implement must verify. So, and then it's actually automatically import it for me because I have those tools set up here. So this must verify email actually ensures that the user, once they are registered, they must verify their email. So that is what that verify does. Now, for this email to work properly, it depends on your application configuration. So if you head over to EMV, I usually use Mailtrap for my testing, and then I think in Laravel 11 you can use log to test your email, to test mailing functionalities in your application. So the good part is that you just need to get the credentials from Mailtrap and then test it. So I just asterisk those things here so that I don't display the credentials. So, but this is basically what you need to update here for the emailing, for the email driver to actually work for this application. So like I said, these two routes will only be accessible once this user is verified. So let me just close all of this now, close this and then close this. Next, now since we have added the verify for a user to verify their email, there are quite a couple of things that happen in the authentication that, like I mentioned before. So the user can request password reset link view, then they can reset their password, then they can verify email. Now, for verification of email, what this does is that this is the view that will be returned. When the user sign up, this view will be returned to them and says a link has been sent to your email address. I'm going to show you when I'm doing the demo, and then they can actually request for another one. So all of these routes, they are listed. So let me just show you again. So when you come to the terminal, you say PHP artisan route list, right? So all of the reads that is being displayed. So how you would know which one to use is when you are dealing with a particular functionality, you can actually come here and then say, okay, for example, I want to resend, I want to send a link to the user again, to this email address of this user that is logged in already, that needs to verify if their email actually exists. So I would use the route verification.send. This is the name of the route. So if you come to this route list here, you will see verification.send. And then you see verification.notice. So, but for this one, I'm using verification.send. So any of these routes that you want to use, you could actually have, you can just check the route list to be sure of which one you're actually dealing with. So this page will be returned when the user sign up, and then they are expected to check their email to verify their email address, or they can request for another one if they did not get it. So I'll just close that and then head over to explain. So this request password link is, if the user forgets their password, they can use this form to request for another one. So they just enter their email and then they request for another password. And then this is for the resetting of the password, they will enter their email address, the password, and then they'll confirm password if they want to change their password. So what this request does is that in the email address, when they request for a password change, it will actually send a token to their email address, which will be attached to this link, and then it will be used to verify them. So next is the confirm password view. So we're going to be using this in the 2FA that I'm going to show you in a moment. So probably you want to set the user to say, okay, like in your regular applications, and then when the user is about to set up their two-factor authentication, they will be asked to provide their password. So this is the view that will handle that. And then in the routes, like I showed you, there is a password.confirm route that would receive the submission of this form. For the 2FA, this is what the 2FA does. So it's actually, this is the view that handles the 2FA. So it says, please enter your secret code. So I'm going to show you when I'm doing the demo. When you come to Fortify, let me show you something. Now, if you say confirm true, what this means is every time the user wants to log in again, they will not be presented with the option of entering their 2FA code or the secret recovery code that was given to them. So I'm going to comment that out. But what this confirm password does is that it will, whenever they want to set up two-factor authentication, it will request the user to enter their password so that we are sure that it is the owner of the account that wants to get 2FA. Because if someone have access to two-factor authentication, the person can actually log you out of your application. So we want to be sure that this user that is requesting for 2FA is actually the owner of the account. So you can leave this to be true. But this one, I'll just leave it. I'll comment it out because I want you to see when the user is logging in after setting up their 2FA, it will require that they should enter the secret code or they will enter the recovery code. So let me explain what happens on this 2FA page here. Now, if you could look at this code, there is the ID that says secret code form. And then there are two forms here. There is the one that has to do with the two-factor secret code, and then there is the one that has to do with the recovery code. So if the user does not have maybe to scan a phone to scan the QR code that is being displayed, they can enter a recovery code that will be displayed to them. So part of those routes that I showed you, there's two-factor login, and then there is two-factor login. So whichever one that is being said, it can actually recognize it. So what I did here was to use JavaScript, right? So in the app.blade.php file, I actually added, gave room for those of us who are familiar with Laravel, and in this option, for those of us who are familiar with Laravel, you know what yield is. But if you do not know what yield is, you want to click the subscribe button, so that you want to hit the subscribe button so that when I create a series on Laravel, you'll be able to understand these things better. So there is the yield script. So this gives room for us to be able to write a custom script for our application. So I say here display form. So there is a where the display form is being called in the application over here. So this is hit here, and then so when the user clicks use secret code, it will actually display this form. So I will hide the secret code form and then display the recovery code form so that the user can actually enter it. So this page will be displayed when the user wants to enter their recovery code or the secret code. Now, for the two-factor authentication display, it actually uses QR code. So what you could do is, so that it recognizes it, to go to user model, and then you want to use just like two-factor authenticable, import two-factor authenticatable, right? So this is a class that will actually help to generate the QR code, and then you could see recovery codes. It will display the recovery codes, and then this is if you want to replace it, if you want to generate a QR code SVG, like an image I'm going to show you, and then if you want a URL for that. So I've added this to the user model here, so do not forget to add this so that it can actually work properly. If you come to the home.blade.php, this is where all of those things are going to take place. So it says this is the flash that happens when the user has disabled it to give this message. When the user enables it to give this message. So this is two-factor authenticated, and then this is two-factor authentication enabled, and then this is two-factor authentication disabled. Now, like I said before, there are routes that have been defined by Fortify that we can leverage on, and so we check if the user has two-factor secret. So if they have it, they delete. If they don't have it, they can enable it. So I'm going to show you when I head over to the browser to do the demo. Once this user has it, then it will display. So this is the two-factor QR code SVG I just showed you from the two-factor authenticable class that is being added. When you come to the user model and then you click the two-factor authenticable, you could see that there is a way to, you see it can be decrypted, and then you can look at it. It says JSON decode decrypt. So in the view here, I just have to decrypt it and then show, because this thing is being stored in the users table. So when you come to users, so these columns were added. So this is where it's being stored: two-factor secret, two-factor recovery codes, and then two-factor confirmed at. So this is the columns that keep track of all of those things concerning a user. So what I did here is that I'm listing a couple of recovery codes that the user should write and save somewhere, so that they can use it when they are going to log in, if they are not able to scan the secret code from this QR code that will be displayed in an image format. Yeah, after editing all of the code, like you followed along, that's a very good one. So the next thing is, you remember we said PHP artisan npm run dev, and so this is the display on the browser. You could see login, and then this is register. Okay, so what this means is, this is a Bootstrap 5 code, and then this is the nav bar, which is actually responsive. So I'll go ahead to register. I'll click register. Then when I have the register here, I can say Fortify at fortify.com. I could say Fortify as the name, and then under email address I say Fortify at Fortify. I could just then supply the password. I'll supply the password here. I'll supply the password here, then confirm password, and then I register. So it says password does not match. So this is, you could see this is out of the box from Fortify. So I'll just come back again and then do the proper thing. Then to register. Compared to when you are going to write this by yourself, you have to write a lot of codes to figure that out. But you could see out of the box, part of what is done in Fortify is that it can actually, when you supply the right details, when your code is well structured, it can actually give the user feedback that this code was not correct. I'm going to leave the link to the view so that you can actually get to use them. So if you come to Mailtrap, you could see that the email was delivered. So for the user to verify their email. So I'm going to click verify email address. So it says email has been verified. So I'm going to close that. And then for here now, this is what I was talking about, 2FA. So this is a two-factor authentication that I said I created on the home page, which is only accessible after the user has been verified. So I'll click enable. When I click enable, it will ask for the password like I showed you when I was creating the application. So I'll say user, and then I'll just, now if the password is correct, then it will come back again and then show that, okay, well, go ahead and enable the 2FA. If it is not correct, it will actually tell the user the password is not correct. So when I click enable, so you could see this is the QR code displayed in image format. So this contains the secret code, and then these are the recovery code. So I'm just going to take one of them here, and then I'll just go over here and then log out. So like I showed you while I was creating the application, I said if you have confirmed to be true, when I'm logging in, it's not going to show me that. I'll say 45, and then I'll just put the password, then I'll just log in. So you could see it says enter secret code. Now I didn't scan the image. What I copied was the use recovery code. So I click use recovery code, and then I enter it and I submit. And then if it is correct, it will give me access. If it is not correct, it will actually tell you secret code not recognized. So let me show you that. So when you log out and you come back to login, and then I say Fortify, and I do. So it says secret code. I said use recovery code, and I put something that it is not familiar with, and I submit. So you see, it actually returns the user back to tell you that the recovery code was not correct. Part of the implementation we did was password reset request. So the user can actually request for a password if the user can actually request to reset their password if they forget it. So I'll come to login, and then I'll say forgot your password. Then I'll supply the link and say Fortify. I just say send password reset link. So it says we have emailed your password reset link. So I'll come to Mailtrap, and then you could see reset password notification was sent. I'll just click reset password. Now you remember I showed you this view while I was setting up those functions in Fortify service provider, and then you could see it's asking for the email. I'll say Fortify, and then I could just do whatever here I want to do to update it, and then do whatever here I want to do to update it, and I'll say reset. So when I reset the password, it will actually ask me to log in. You could see now, so I could say Fortify, and then I'll say then. So pretty much you could see I'm actually back to the application again. So, and then I was able to show you how that works now, and then so the user can actually, so this is part of like an extra and like an additional layer to your application if you want it to be more secure for user to enter that secret code before they're going into the application. You could see it is still holding on to confirm that it is actually aware of this user before it grants the user access. I trust this video was really helpful to you. If you're looking at using Bootstrap 5 for the front end of a Laravel application and using Laravel Fortify for the authentication, I trust this was really helpful. And don't forget to like the video, click the subscribe button, and let me know what you think about authentication system in Laravel. Until next time, bye.